Right now on Capitol Hill, huge fireworks from Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee. It happened just a couple of minutes ago. Congressman Mike Conaway calling on the Democratic chair of that committee, Adam Schiff, to resign.
Your willingness to continue to promote a demonstrably false narrative is alarming. The findings of the special counsel conclusively refute your past and present assertions and have exposed you as having abused your position to knowingly promote false information, having damaged the integrity of this committee and undermined the faith in the United States government and its institutions. Your actions, both past and present, are incompatible with your duty as chairman of this committee, which alone in the House of Representatives has the obligation and authority to provide effective oversight of the U.S. intelligence community. As such, we have no faith in your ability to discharge your duties in a manner consistent with your constitutional responsibility and urge your immediate resignation as chairman of the committee.
Joining me now, Malcolm Nance, MSNBC terrorism analyst and contributor and author of The Plot to Destroy Democracy, How Putin and His Spies Are Undermining America and Dismantling the West. Also, Ambassador Chris Hill, MSNBC diplomacy expert and contributor. Amy and Mike, still with me. Okay, I understand because we were on the air, but Malcolm and Ambassador, you were actually hearing this, what was going on in the Intel Committee. Now, this is supposed to be about Russia, which is in both of your wheelhouses, obviously. But Malcolm, what the heck went on there?
Well, the hearing that's being carried out right now is a hearing on Russian counterintelligence operations during the 2016 election and whether they continue in the United States. Adam Schiff made an interesting point where he said they are not here to determine whether Americans committed a conspiracy with Russia, but whether Russian intelligence was carrying out active operations and U.S. intelligence was countering those. There were some fireworks thrown, that's for sure. And Adam Schiff came back and punched just as hard back at Senator Conway as Senator Conway's comments were.
Ambassador, how did you read this? And I mean, here we are, we're in the middle of this hearing, and, you know, a lot of people want to know what's going to happen now. Are we in any better shape with this election than we were with what happened in 2016? But it's brought back to the politics. It's brought back, let's remember, the Russia investigation. Let me get your take on what you just heard.
Well, first of all, I thought the Republicans chose the moment to attack Congressman Schiff based on the idea that the conclusions of the Mueller report were that they didn't have a basis to go ahead with a case against the president. I think Schiff really hit back in what I found a just riveting, eviscerating counterpunch at that. But we still haven't really gotten to the witnesses on the essential question, what is Russia up to and what are we doing to counter this? And for all the sort of sanctimonious statements by the Republicans, they were so far off base on the purpose of the hearing. So I think they took it as an occasion to go after Schiff. And, you know, you have the impression that the president asked them to do that and they sort of are willing accomplices to it. But they were far afield from what they were supposed to be doing, that is, looking at the question of Russia and its malign influences or efforts against American democracy.
We're going to get back as soon as we can turn that sound from Adam Schiff. But Malcolm, I want to go back and talk a little bit more about the whole idea of election security, which is what this is supposed to be about, because in that 45-minute interview on Fox last night, here's what the president said about that.
We are putting very strong safeguards in. We're having many, this sounds a little old-fashioned, but the best backup is a paper backup, not a computer backup. And we have many paper backups just in case there is a problem, something which they didn't have before. But we are being very vigilant and working very hard.
Sir.
And we have tremendous systems in place.
Malcolm, I just want you to respond to fact check that last line. We have tremendous systems in place.
We don't have tremendous systems in place, and that's because all of election security falls onto each individual state. And we had this problem in 2016. And believe me, no one would love more than to have a paper backup than myself, because that would give us a free and fair election that you could actually recount with a physical device. It's the software. However, the real issue of 2016, and Ambassador McFaul actually made this point at the beginning of his statement on the panel, is that there is an ideological war being waged here between Putinism and democracy. And Putinism uses all the instruments of the intelligence state to corrupt our democracy through our own free speech. And that is where Russia made dramatic inroads into the 2016 election. They didn't have to hack the ballots. They hacked the mindset of the American public. At least 1/3 of them will believe more from Russia than they will anybody else.
And presumably we're going to actually hear more about that. But look, Conaway knew that he was going to take the attention off of that, everything you just said, and he was going to put it on Adam Schiff. Here was Schiff's response to the call for him to step down.
I don't think it's okay that during a presidential campaign, Mr. Trump sought the Kremlin's help to consummate a real estate deal in Moscow that would make him a fortune. According to the special counsel, hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't think it's okay that he concealed it from the public. I don't think it's okay that he advocated a new and more favorable policy towards the Russians, even as he was seeking the Russians' help, the Kremlin's help to make money. I don't think it's okay that his attorney lied to our committee. There's a different word for that than collusion, and it's called compromise. And that is the subject of our hearing today.
Okay, so that was Adam Schiff. Look, the Republicans tried to make the target of the 2018 campaign Nancy Pelosi. It failed miserably. They've gone after AOC. That doesn't seem to be getting a lot of traction. Is now Adam Schiff the target?
Yeah, and I'm sure they're going to go after Jerry Nadler, too. And when you politicize this, it's kind of a shameful thing, because then the precedent is there seem to be very legitimate questions. Let's look at the questions in a forthright and above board way. Okay, these questions, at least some of them turned out not to have been the worst case scenario. And then you say, and so what's the consequence? Everyone asking to look at the question needs to resign, needs to step down, needs to be defenestrated. It seems to me a terrible way to run a democracy.
In the time we have left, I want to switch, because I can't let you go, Ambassador Hill, without asking you about what's going on across the pond. British Prime Minister Theresa May, with this whole Brexit thing, now literally putting her career on the line. She offered to resign if the deal is approved. I mean, give me your take on what's happening over there and what the consequences could be.
Well, believe it or not, it's much calmer on this side of the pond. The Parliament just looked at, 8 different outcomes for Brexit and essentially rejected them all. So it's truly a mess. For the world's, one of the world's very oldest democracies, they really don't know where to go with this. The Europeans, of course, the European Union gave them a little extra time into April, and the Brits really are not capable of coming up with something that would suggest they're going to use it. I mean, obviously, they need to, they feel they need to get out of Brexit, but do it with a deal that leaves them in approximately the position of Norway and Canada, and they can't seem to get there. So there are a lot of problems.
Yeah, you make a good point when you make that comparison. Like here, like the stock market, the economy seems to have built into it dealing with the chaos. But over there, the financial implications, the implications for democracy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.